The following program may contain coarse language, violence, nudity, mature subject matter, or scenes which may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. And this is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, and Simul TV Channel 54. Thank you all for your emails. I'm still in the recent days of having beat the heck out of COVID. It's great to be back. This is day 2 after the long week off. And once again, thank you so much for all your emails and your letters and for bearing with me at these times. Exonation, my first guest tonight is Jean Keegan-Daly. She is a holistic registered nurse, counselor, therapist, and educator. And joining us now is our good guest this hour, Jean Keegan-Daly. And how are you, Jean?
I'm very well, thank you, and very happy to be here.
Well, we're happy you're with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you said, I'm a long-time registered nurse, holistic therapist, educator, and counselor. I have had private practice. I have worked in hospitals. I've worked as a hospice nurse. I have a lot of certifications in a lot of different modalities. And I have a mastership in Reiki energy healing. I'm a certified modern relationship therapist. I have an elevated listening certification. I'm a dream builder, transformational life coach. And I'm developing a new program, a 3-month program for mothers and their teenage daughters, how to help them to feel good about themselves in many ways.
What is the difference between a holistic registered nurse and a regular registered nurse?
Well, I was trained as a regular registered nurse, which meant that if a patient had, let's say, an emotional situation where they were crying or they were upset about something, we were taught to call the psychiatrist in for a consultation. If the patient had spiritual issues, we were trained to call in the patient's either the spiritual counselor that they might have had or someone that worked in the hospital. So a holistic nurse, even though we have all of those resources at hand in the hospital, we really attend to the body, mind, spirit, and soul and emotional aspects of the patient. So, for example, I had a patient one time in a hospital situation, young mother who was having surgery on her neck the following day, and she was very upset and crying. So I had time. I stayed with her, elicited from her what her concerns were, and her concerns were not just about the surgery, but about her 3 little girls at home with her disabled mother-in-law. Her husband was overseas, and she was just really scared that she would not be able to take care of her daughters when she got out of the hospital. So I helped her to practice relaxation breathing. I did a little meditation with her. I gave her some soothing words to say, and she was so much calmer.
Really?
That was part of the job as a holistic nurse, but I got in a little bit of trouble for that because that wasn't acceptable yet. And I was told that I should have called a psychiatrist. In my view, she didn't need a psychiatrist. She needed somebody to listen to her and to help her to know that some positive statements from her and some resources that we talked about her having
Hmm.
besides her mother-in-law would help her.
I understand in 1988 you had a profound near-death experience. Can you share it with us?
Yes. I was in private practice. I was very, very busy with my private practice, doing counseling and healing. I
Hmm.
was teaching classes. I was had two meditation groups that I ran in my home every week. And this was before computers. So I just thought that my fatigue and the pain on my right side was indeed just stress. And I was kind of hard on myself because I thought that I should be able to know how to handle this stress since I was in the field business of it, of learning how to do that. But I got sicker and sicker. And next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, very, very ill. I was in the hospital for 16 days, which
Wow.
would be an infection of my liver, which they realized was caused by a blood transfusion that I had to have 2 years prior during surgery when I was a hospice nurse. And I just felt I was so sick. I felt like here I was supporting myself, helping my children through college, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I didn't know how I was going to have an income because they told me that it would take me a long time to be well enough to go back to work. So I just was feeling, I was looking out the window one day in my hospital bed. I was alone in the room. It was daytime. I was wide awake. And suddenly I was praying, I believe, or I was just feeling sorry for myself. Um, but I was lying there fully awake, and suddenly I started to feel very different. I started to feel like my body was um, getting lighter and lighter,
Mm.
and the pain started to just start to fade. And I realized that I was rising up off the bed. I could see it. I could see myself down on the bed, but my consciousness and my mind was up above me in the bed. And I just started floating. And I was found myself in a hallway. It was like a hallway, a huge, like a ballroom.
Hmm.
And the ballroom was filled with light and filled with beings. A lot of the beings in that ballroom area were people that I had known. They were family members who had died. They were patients of mine. I have a story in my book about one patient who reminded me, oh, I was a student nurse when I had her, and that was a long time before. And there was a whole story about what she was showing me that related to when I took care of her. Um, there were angelic beings. There were beautiful, glowing, and in front of me, at the end of this long hallway, and everything was light. I was floating
Hmm.
like a floor of light, and I wanted so much to be embraced with this beautiful, spectacular light at what I thought was the end of this hallway. And the people all around me and the beings all around me were just holding out their arms like they were welcoming me. I felt incredible love. I felt incredible peace. I had no pain. I really had no thought about being sick. I just knew that I felt more wonderful than I ever felt ever before. And everything was so easy and so peaceful and so beautiful, and there were colors I had never seen before. And just as I was getting to the light that was so incredibly brilliant, I can't even describe it. I still get, feel that in my heart and my emotions. I heard a voice, and the voice was very strong, very kind, very loving, but very firm. Not now, Jean. Go back. Sean needs you. And it was very confusing to me. I had a son named Sean. He was 19 years old. He was in college. He was doing well. I didn't understand that. Kind of scared me at first because I thought maybe that meant something was going to happen to him.
Hmm.
I was whisking back, totally in a speed that I just never felt before. And I saw myself coming down, down, down into the bed again. And when I got my spiritual body connected with my physical body in the bed, all the pain was back. I was so confused and so upset about this that I didn't even realize there was a nurse in the room saying to me, "Are you okay? Are you in pain? Do you need pain medication?" And I couldn't even answer her at the moment. And I certainly didn't feel like I could tell her what happened to me. I didn't feel like I could tell anyone. So that was 1988. I wrote my book, published it in 2017. And that's the first time I related my story.
Since
It is though I every time I tell the story, it's though I'm there all over again. So the end of that experience was I didn't understand what it meant, but the experience of the near death really changed my life in many, many ways for the better.
All right, so
And
we'll
so,
talk about that when I come back from this break. Exonation, our guest this hour is Jean Keegan-Daly. She's the author of Reflections of a Seasoned Soul, and we'll be talking more to Jean on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Daly is my special guest this hour, Exonation. She is the author of a very interesting book entitled Reflections of a Seasoned Soul. You were telling us about your near-death experience and how you were just zooming back into your body. The nurse was there asking you if you were all right, if you needed anything for the pain. And I have to ask you, how did the entire near-death experience change your life? It must have been something that just blew you out of the water.
it did. It did. I I didn't know what was going to happen to me after that. I knew I was very sick,
Mm-hmm.
and this near death experience made me feel like there was something waiting for me that was going to be very important for me to do. I just didn't know when or how or what it was. And all of that really unfolded. I became well. It did take me about 9 months before I could return to work.
Mm-hmm.
But in that time, things just seemed to work out for me. Um, I had friends that would come and visit me and help me with things that I was too weak to do on my own. I had my sons were coming up to see me when they were free from college to do that for periods of time. And of course, my parents, my siblings. I'm the oldest of six children, so I had a lot of support. And I started to do actually during that time, and I don't have this in my book because I actually just remembered it right now. I was doing some automatic writing.
Hmm.
And the automatic writing was something I had never done before. I didn't know much about it. But I was told through this automatic writing of a person to see who was a healer who I had not known before. I was given her name. I was given the neighbor that I hadn't known before who knew her. And I was given two products to take. They were minerals for my body. So as I recovered, there were things that were unfolding. People were just coming to me. All the clients that I had to leave for that almost year not only came back to me but brought their recommendations of friends. So I was really, really busy, but with a different perspective on that busyness. I knew that I had to take care of myself. I had to pay more attention to keeping myself nurtured, keeping myself supported, keeping
Mm-hmm.
myself, in a state of health and well-being in order for me to be the best for my clients and all of the things that I would do after that in the future, which have been many things. The surprise came 12 years later. The son named Sean, who was my younger son, was married first before my older son, who was 18 months older. His name is Dennis. And Sean got married, and a few years later, they had a child. The child was born 3 months premature. So this is my first grandchild. And the outcome that he was given was very poor. And I just immediately, when I went in to see him right after he was born with my son, he was in an incubator. He had tubes everywhere. He was just this little tiny peanut, and I just felt like this song was coming through me. So I started singing. And the song, I just kept singing it again and again. And I also did healing for him every single day, whether I was there at the nursery in the NICU or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they named him Sean. So I realized that that was the Sean that I was really coming back into my life for, to help him. And today he is 23 years old. He is absolutely wonderful, healthy, fit, handsome, intelligent, just and quite spiritual, as a matter of fact. So he's
Wow.
my oldest out of three. And in the meantime, I helped my son Sean as well with things, business careers that he was changing at the time, and so on. So to me, when and I remembered that message, that I believe was the voice of God, voice of Source. Not now, Gene, go back. Sean needs you. He is as healthy as can be today, and also, I feel as though that that experience was something that I needed to share with other people. So recently, I was invited to be as one of the speakers with two other nurses who also had near-death experience on a international near-death experiencers conference in Utah. I did not go out there, but we did the videos, and so I just recently got the videos to watch of our presentation, and we were the very first nurses they ever had a panel with to talk about near-death experiences. And so the purpose was to help other, medical people
Mm-hmm.
to take seriously, to take them seriously when they had this. So it was something.
Why don't you think that the medical community takes near-death experiences very seriously?
Well, first of all, that was never part of the training. You know,
Okay.
um, when I was a young nurse in training,
Mm-hmm.
we were absolutely not even allowed, and this was in the 60s, we were not allowed to tell a patient even or their blood pressure or their temperature. And certainly we weren't allowed to tell them they were dying, even if they asked us. So, I just always felt that that was not fair, that was not right. And the doctors, when patients would say, well, but I saw this light, I saw what you were doing. I was, a lot of patients have had their experiences when they're having surgery. I saw everything you did to me. And usually the response to those patients would be, oh, well, we had to stop your heart, you were on a heart lung machine, or, the brain goes into some kind of situation where, what you're seeing is a light that has to do with the function of your brain at the time of surgery since you're under anesthesia. So there was really no one I knew at the
Hmm.
time that really validated the experience to the patients. But I knew, even as a young nurse, I knew that they were real for the patients. I just, until my own experience, I couldn't really feel safe enough in my profession to talk to patients about that. And then I became a hospice nurse. There was a lot more freedom for me to talk with patients in hospice care.
What was it like working as a hospice nurse? Here you've got the ability, and I think that anyone who works in a hospice is a very gifted and wonderful person, because here you are at the end of this person's life. You with probably with them for the a couple of days or weeks prior to them passing, and it's a very special time. And how did you? I feel you're very empathetic, and you're very loving, and you're very, if you'll excuse the expression, my wife is a nurse, and and you have the same qualities she has. And I can only imagine the pleasure and pride you took being with that person at that time.
Yes. You know, it was something that I sought out. And
Hmm.
it was really meant to be. I really believe that the universe, source, God, however you want to express that
Right.
creative power, um, leads us and guides us to what we are here to do. And I knew that that was part of my being here. Um, Hospice nursing to me was a highlight of my career. I've done many things in my career, and you're right, I'm very empathetic. I
Hmm.
love helping people. I knew from the time I was 5 years old that that was going to be my life's work. I didn't understand at the time, of course, but the whole story is in my book. And the three stories in my book of the three most memorable hospice patients, people have told me have been so impactful to them, so
So
inspiring.
why don't we have a bit of a cliffhanger here? When we come back, let's talk about those three patients.
Okay.
Explanation. Our guest is Jean Keegan-Daly. She is the author of Reflections of a Seasoned Soul, and we'll be back on the other side as we continue this very interesting, loving, tender story right here on the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Jean Keegan-Daly is my special guest. She's the author of Reflections of a Seasoned Soul. Where can your book be purchased, Jean?
The best place is
Okay,
Amazon.com because
excellent.
it's self-published. It's not in bookstores, but it's online at Amazon.com, which I'm proud to say it has 5 stars. A lot of wonderful, beautiful comments. And when I wrote the book, I knew nothing about writing a book and publishing and marketing and all of that. So, um, I'm republishing it next year, early next year. But the marketing part of it, I didn't really didn't really know how to do. Anyway, what the books that I have sold, I've sold many on my own, just from my home. Um, it's something that I felt was so important to do. But it took me a long time before I had the courage to write the book.
Before we
And
went before we went to the break, we were going to talk about three cases, three hospice cases,
yeah,
and I'm sorry I cut you off there.
that's okay. Um, well, just very succinctly, these were the three most memorable patients I had, and one was a child because I had been a pediatric nurse.
Oh my gosh.
And as the oldest of 6 children, I always was involved with children.
Hmm.
So when I joined the hospice, and I started to say before that I think that we are guided. If we listen to that inner guidance, we always know what to do.
Hmm.
And even though I only met one of the three requirements to be a hospice nurse in the private hospice center that I was working in Pennsylvania, because there were none in New Jersey around me that I knew of, um, I only met one requirement, and my letter of why I wanted to be a hospice nurse got me hired right away. And I loved it. I just loved it. And I cried with the patients sometimes and their families. But this little girl, whose story is in the book, her name was Diane,
Hmm.
and she was an angel. She was just an angel. As a matter of fact, I spent a year with her in her home. There were no respite facilities at the time like there are now. So every patient that I saw for all those years that I worked at hospice was in their home. So it was patient and family care. And this little girl, she knew she was dying, and we could freely talk about it. She was only 9 years old, got a
God
brain
bless her.
tumor. And the story of her in the book and all that happened would take me too long to tell you, but if anybody wants to purchase the book and read the story, I think they will really love it. Um, the, the end of the story of Diane was that she told me the doctors had given her very little time to live. And she told me that she couldn't die at the time that the doctors said because she knew her grandmother was dying and she felt that her mother couldn't handle both deaths.
God.
So she made a little pact with God, that he would let her live a little longer until her mother could get through um, her mother's death. And that's exactly what happened. Um, so Diane was not expected to live through that Christmas, and yet she did. And because the family was so poor and there was no father involved at the time, and she had a little brother, um, it, it's just a beautiful story about the gifts that I was able to give her, a gift that she chose for me that was just perfect. And she actually died the night after I was rushed to the hospital, hemorrhaging, and had to have emergency surgery. And I could not be there after spending a year with her. I could not be there when she died, and it broke my heart. However, she appeared to me. I had not been medicated yet before the surgery. I was in an ante room. The nurse was going to come in with the medication before they took me into the OR, and I saw this light, and this light was coming closer and closer to me, and there was Diane. I see, I still get choked up about it. And she said to me, "Don't worry, Miss Jean." She used to call me Miss Jean. "Don't worry, Miss Jean. You're going to be fine." And I'm fine. And then I went in because they thought I had cancer, and I did not, as it turned out. And I didn't see her again, but I heard her when I was awake in the recovery room. And I could see the light. I couldn't see her face at that time. And she said to me, see, Miss Jean, I told you everything would be okay, and it is, and I love you." And I told her that I loved her too. Her story is beautiful. And the other two stories are similar. One is Trudy. Trudy was my very first hospice patient. She was a very angry woman. She had lung cancer. She was very angry. She kind of threw me out the first two times I was there. She didn't need a nurse. She didn't want a nurse. She was going to die. And I was able to get her to trust me because, that's really important when you're working with patients. To be so kind and attentive and open to listening to them so that they're not impeded by any judgment or anything. And she told me the story. Her husband had died a year earlier. Her son had died 6 months earlier of a brain cancer behind his eye. He was only 34, I think. And now she was dying, and all she did was wanted to die. She was very angry. So I gained her trust, and she was in pain, so I started to ask her if I could just put my hands gently on her chest. And she immediately felt comforted, and she wanted to know what that was all about. So I started talking about energy healing to her. Anyway, over 4 months, there was such a transformation in Trudy that she told her minister at her church about me, and I went and talked to the congregation about what was going on with Trudy. And she appeared to me as well. As a matter of fact, there's a story in my book, and her story, about a time when she actually was seeing the other side, and she thought I was with her, and she was talking to me like you could see on her face it was translucent, like she was in a reverie, and she was saying, "Oh, Jean, it's so beautiful. Oh, can you see? Look at those colors." And then she came out of it because the doorbell rang, and she said, "What? Why am I here? What happened to all of that?" And I said, "Trudy, it's not your time yet, but I think you had a glimpse of what you're going to." And she went back into it again, and she said, 4 o'clock Thursday. That's when my husband's going to come for me. So I changed my schedule so I could be with her at 4 o'clock on Thursday, thinking it was Thursday afternoon. I get a phone call at 10 after 4 in the middle of the night, on Wednesday night. I was asleep, from the night nurse, who said Trudy died at 4 o'clock.
Oh my
AM.
gosh.
Yeah. And I saw her. I couldn't go back to sleep when I saw her. She just was glowing, glowing, glowing. And the final story that I have in here is, do we have to go yet?
No, we're going to stretch it.
Okay. The final story is Henry, A Garden for Henry. That is an incredible story. Henry was a man also dying of cancer who was so angry wouldn't let his wife in the room, wouldn't let me in the room, very, very angry, and his transformation was just incredible. I was able eventually to gain his trust through offering him pain medication that hospice nurses really know how to um, put the medications together. And like I call the doctor and I'd say, Doctor, I think, if we try this combination, he'd say, okay, Gene, that sounds good. I had much more freedom to be a holistic nurse during hospice care. So, anyway, I got Henry to trust me, and I asked him I realized he didn't have purpose anymore, as he had been a veteran steel worker in Pennsylvania, and they didn't have any children. His wife couldn't have children, and he had all these plans for when he retired, and now he was dying. So his dream, or I should say, his hobby, was always his garden. So I have all the details in his story of how I got neighbors and some other helpers from hospice to come and help him plant his garden. And he would hand me the seeds, and we planted his garden outside. He was able to get out of bed in a wheelchair and go out. I pushed him outside. It was springtime, and he lived until he had the first green beans and the tomatoes. His wife made a soup. He
God
died
bless him.
after that. That gives me chills.
Gene, now I
So
have to
he,
take my break. Please stand by. Exonation, our guest this hour is Jean Keegan-Daly. She is the author of Reflections of a Seasoned Soul. It's available on Amazon. Thanks very much for joining us and sharing these stories. We'll be right back. Don't go away. And we're back. Wait a second. Craig, we've got the wrong guest up there. Can you bring our Jean back? Oh, there's Jean. Welcome back, Jean.
Thank you.
Okay. Those stories are quite touching. In your opinion, Jean, after the great work you've done, not only with children but with people in the hospice situations, and your own near-death experience, do we need to fear death?
Absolutely not. I certainly don't. I think that, death is like a doorway. You're stepping into another plane of existence. So I have often, when I counsel people, I've often used the analogy of a fan. So if you look at a fan and you see all the blades, they're still. That's our physical reality. If you turn the fan on high, you know the blades are there, but you can't see them as nearly as well. They're spinning so fast.
Right.
That's what it's like, because we are all energy. Everything is energy, and the higher the vibration of energy, the more you are able to go through that veil that separates the physical plane, the density of physical matter, from the spiritual essence of energy that we really are. So it's important for people, in my view, to keep their level of vibration high, meaning that look for the joyful things in life, look for the ways you can help people, look for the ways that you can nurture yourself so that you can nurture others. Um, we live in a very chaotic world right now with a lot of division and a lot of hatred and a lot of awful things going on. And even though it's important to be aware of that, I feel that I don't get caught up in that energy. Um, I'm aware of it, and what I do is I send light, I send love, I send peace vibrationally to the places in the world that need it, to the people in the world that feel, that they have to hate, or they have to control, or they have to be greedy, or, you know, and I try very hard not to judge them, because I don't know, what their whole life story is. I'm not sure why they're here, but I do know that the place that we go, I mean, I've had a lot of visions throughout my life since that near-death experience. And I've had, angelic visitations. I've been saved from terrible things, accidents. There's stories in my book about that. So I know that that dimension of reality, that's a much higher vibration when we die, is waiting for us. It's just there. And to me, it doesn't matter whether, whatever religion you say you are, or that you have no religion, as long as you realize that there is a source, there is a creative source, and in the universe that just it's constantly expanding, and we need to expand with it. So what I saw and what I experienced, I am absolutely not afraid of death at all.
I understand that you also do soul rescues. What are they?
Well, actually did one before I ever went to the Monroe Institute in Virginia, and I didn't realize what it was. A soul rescue is a person who is dying, or they have already died. They've gone
Hmm.
through the state of dying, but they haven't gone completely through that doorway, as I call it, or that veil into that spiritual realization. They don't realize that. So they're kind of caught. They're earthbound spirits, as I've been told they're called. Um, so the first time it happened to me was, oh my goodness, probably back in the 70s. I was meditating in my room alone. My children were downstairs doing their homework, and I heard this call, like somebody. It sounded like a garbled voice, and what I saw in my mind was there was a woman who was drowning. She was underneath the water, and she was trapped because she was hooked on something and she couldn't get free. And I just saw myself kind of floating down and just releasing her. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know that that was a soul rescue, but it was a rescue of some kind. It was different when I got to the Monroe Institute in Virginia to study, you know, really more about this other dimension that we can perceive and that I believe we live in after we die on Earth. And there are three stories that I have in my book about this. They were so incredibly real. I could never have made these up. I didn't. It was a matter of going into a, a dimension of mind that I was shown people that had died and they didn't know it. They needed help to know that they died and to cross over into the light. I literally saw them. I got the three very different stories. One is a little boy, and one is a woman. She was a Vietnamese woman, and I saw myself literally with these people. And one was a baby,
Hmm.
and her family. The stories are too long to go into now, but they were three separate stories where I knew that I was seeing this, and I knew that they had died, but they didn't know that. They were still trapped. And I was able to lead them to this light, help them to feel safe, help them to know that they died, that they're okay, they're going to be okay. And there were these angelic beings that were waiting, that were taking them into this light. The same kind of light that I saw in my near-death experience. It was just like a bringing you in, and it was so loving. And they each had to finish something. They each had to finish one little thing. It was a realization of something. They're a little bit different in the stories of what they each had to do, but I felt like I was absolutely meant to rescue these souls and help them to cross over.
Gene, the time is coming very shortly where you and I must say so long for tonight, but what are your final thoughts for the X Zone Nation? What would you like to share?
I would like to share just the very end of my book, where I have that I feel In our lifetime, our truest responsibilities are to get out of our own way, to be still and listen to the voice of God within, to appreciate, to be grateful, and to give thanks, to deeply love and easily forgive, and to take the next step, be it on the solid ground of knowing or in a flight of faith. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. So pay attention to who you really are. You are a spiritual being having this human experience, and you're on your journey back. So do the good that you can do in this world. Love and just be in touch with that part of you.
Gene, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to get a copy of Gene's book, it is entitled Reflections of a Seasoned Soul, and it's available on Amazon. Until next time we meet, Gene, thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you very
night
much.
All right, Exo Nation. Wow, those stories were really touching. Once again, the name of the book is Reflections of a Seasoned Soul. My guest this hour was Gene Keegan-Daly. I'll be back on the other side of the break at 10 o'clock at 11 o'clock Eastern as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't go away.